I want to give you my framework that helped me overcome all of my limiting beliefs that everyone was really eager to tell me about, but no one actually told me how to overcome them. And that is why I'm sharing with you what I wish I knew 7 years ago when I was 18, because your girl was trying to figure out a lot of stuff and she didn't know what to do. So let's get into it, because I know your time is precious. Instead of trying to break through your limiting beliefs and fix your mindset, let's go to the root of the problem. That way you get the results that you want and you can uncover what you even truly want, because a lot of times we don't even know that. I always see that everything is way more connected than we could possibly imagine. Having a brain that's trying to connect to absolutely everything did make me stunted over and over and over again, and just kind of in my own dead ends trying to figure out the hole that I got myself into. At the core, this framework is action focused. It's going to short circuit your limiting beliefs where you don't need to worry about them anymore, and it's gonna get you feeling really good about making progress in the things that really matter to you. Over time, action taking will become easier because you will see that, hey, this action is aligned with what I want to do, so I might as well do it. You'll train yourself to do the stuff that you otherwise might be procrastinating on or thinking is hard. So let me go ahead and share the framework with you. I'll share the top line overview first, just jumping through all the levels. From a high level overview, you have at the top your values. At the bottom is you, by the way. So at the top you have your values. Your values, they drive your priorities. Then your priorities, they drive your actions. Your actions dictate your outcomes. Your outcomes dictate your beliefs, which could be serving you, could be not. Then your beliefs dictate your mindset and your psyche, which is what you're stuck with, because under that is you. So all of this stuff could either be serving you or not. And here I want to dive through and break down how it can be serving you. That way you can sort through all the noise and get the results that you want faster. Your values. Your values, you can think of them as pillars, kind of like the thing that your life revolves around. You don't always articulate them, but if it's going well, you feel it. If things aren't aligned with your values, you also feel it. One of the best ways to do this exercise for the first time of identifying your values is looking in hindsight and looking at your past actions and looking at how you're spending your time and seeing how that is like allocated, whether that's school, work, your beliefs, your family, your significant other. How is that allocated? The things that you really enjoy doing, your passions, whatever you're working towards, why? Or maybe you're not, and maybe you want to, but you can't start. This is all designed to help you feel like you have a handle on things, you know what to do, you see progress happening, and you feel good about it as well. Your values are something that are written all over everything that you touch, whether you're consciously aware of them or not. The first time I tried to articulate my values, I was 18 years old. We were all given a list of 400 words, from which our task was to narrow them down to 3 to 5, 3 to 6, which is incredibly difficult. And these values, they iterate, they change over time as they become more accurate. As those iterations take place, you become more and more aware of what your values are, why they are so, and you know what to prioritize and what to leave, because you can do anything you want, but not everything you want. It takes, to get good at something, 5 years. To get a grasp in an industry, 2 to 3 years. Let's say you're in your 20s, right? Or maybe you're a little younger, maybe you're in your 30s, but you can get good at maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 things over the course of the decade. But if you're constantly trying new stuff, you're only getting like a step or two, and then you're starting over, especially if you're switching industry or switching specialization. So you're constantly going almost through like that learning curve of uninformed optimism, then you have your pessimism, you have your valley of despair, and then you finally get some success, right? And then usually your goals evolve by this point, and you see that the grass isn't greener where I am. I think it's greener somewhere else, but that's really not true. You've just gotten used to looking at the grass of where you are. You're seeing the dirt now, you're seeing the potholes, you're seeing the ants crawling around, and you're not seeing that on the other hill. So you're thinking, hey, maybe I'll go try that instead. And so you then go through that same exact learning curve. The goal here is to go through the learning curve, right? And then to get better and then keep going up. So that learning curve can be a trajectory going upwards if we stay in one place for long enough. Simultaneously, we also need to decide when we are no longer a fit and at which point we do need to discontinue. And that is something that your values are essential for helping you with. Your values are these unspoken pillars that your life kind of revolves around, and it's really evident in the big decisions that you've made. Now, downstream from your values, right, you have your priorities. Your priorities, so each value might have like 1, 3, 5 different priorities that you're going after. And these priorities are kind of big umbrella term things. So let's say education is important to you. One of your big priorities might be to graduate from college. Separate discussion on whether or not that's worth it. Then your actions might be the classes that you're taking. And then your outcomes are your grades that you get. Now, whether or not your grades are good or not, that's going to dictate your beliefs of whether or not you think you're a good student, whether or not you think you're good at presenting or public speaking or building relationships with people, working in a group setting. And then from those beliefs, which could be serving, could be limiting, then you have your psyche or your mindset. That could be negative, positive, serving, not serving. It could be telling you that you're horrible, you're doing everything wrong, you suck, or it can be empowering. And so on all of this, then there's you. This can all either be weighing down on you, or it can be lifting you up, and it can be the floor that you stand on to accelerate the success that you really want. The other day I was sitting there and I was writing out a couple things, and this finally popped into my head. Hey, you can utilize this as you're going through and achieving the things that you really care about. This framework is action focused, it's results focused, it's driving you to get the outcomes that really matter to you. Whether those outcomes are extreme success or, feeling okay, taking a little bit of a break and resting. Instead of going bottom up, let's go top down. So what most people try to do is they try to go bottom up. And what I mean by this is, we usually have like beliefs and we have our mindset and then we have us, like your mindset / your psyche. Trying to figure out, let me know in the comments below if you like mindset or psyche better. I think psyche resonates with what I'm trying to say. But English is my second language and words are hard for me. That is why I fixate on them to try to really convey what I'm trying to through them. And that's why oftentimes it's quite difficult for me to create content because I do want it to really resonate and I'm a perfectionist. So if you take anything away from that little rant, just know that this framework works. So instead of going bottom up and people trying to be like, yeah, break through your limiting beliefs, get a better mindset. Let's go top down. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So at the top, you have your values. Your values are written over everything that you touch, whether you can or have articulated them or not. Now your values, if you aren't consciously aware of what they are, then it's really hard to know what to focus on. Because once you're clear on your values, they drive your priorities. And a lot of times our priorities, they're not chosen by us. They're kind of given to us by either our parents or society or mentors. And we just take them on and we execute on them. And maybe sometimes we don't really, feel passionate about those particular priorities. And so then we're doing stuff that we don't really care about. And that's kind of pissing us off because then we're taking actions that we don't want to take, which is creating outcomes that we don't really want. We kind of just feel all the. It doesn't have to be that way. If you get really clear on your values, you'll know what to say no to. And as you get older, that is the most important thing, saying no, because everyone is going to try to take your time. And your time is your most precious asset, because after doing everything you have to do, you only have so much that you can really make progress with on a day-to-day basis after taking care of all the human necessities that you have to. So once you're clear on your values and you can be clear on your priorities, each value that you have, you'll usually have like 1 to 3 priorities that kind of attach to it. Yeah, that's the graphic. We'll go with it. And you might only be acting right on one of those priorities at a time, but the thing is, because you see that trajectory and you know where you're going, you feel good about it. Now, each priority, depending on how big it is, could have a list of things that you got to do to actually accomplish it. It might be a lot of things, and a lot of those things are pretty mundane and they're not really exciting to do. That's why people say that business is so boring, because you're not really doing fun stuff. And usually you're doing stuff that's gonna get you rejected a ton, and it's a lot of like trying to figure stuff out and things not working, especially with technology. So it's not really that fun. And that's what people say. It's like, oh yeah, it's about showing up and doing the work. And now you can just go and do it. And then you'll see the progress that you really care about. That's the cool part, right? After doing the boring work, because you are smart enough to do it. After doing the boring work, you will accomplish that priority, and that will feel good because it's aligned with your values. And now, when your outcomes, right, because based on your values, your priorities, your actions, now you have your outcomes. When you are getting your desired outcomes, guess what? Those beliefs that you have are naturally going to shape up to be serving, because you're seeing that you have the stack of proof to say that you are who you say you are, who you want to be, and your mind knows that now. That's what's driving your mindset. That's what's driving your psyche. That's what's driving you, and you're functioning at a fundamentally different state. Now, getting clear on those values, on those priorities and setting them, on doing the actions, creating the actions, that's the hard part, truly. And you can do it by yourself. I've given you literally the thing that I wish I had. So most people, let's say this is you right here, and then you have your mindset and your beliefs. People are trying to break through their limiting beliefs, and that doesn't work. Instead, let's go top down. So what that means is, let's define your values. Let's make sure that you know what those are for you. Then we can go down and figure out the things that are your priorities. Then we see the actions that you really want to take in order to accomplish those priorities, which will then drive the actions that you want to have. Now, those limiting beliefs that you had will be solved, because guess what? Outcomes and beliefs, they go flip and forth. Like, if you're not getting the outcomes that you want, you're gonna have limiting beliefs. And someone can tell you, yeah, you have a limiting belief about this. But guess what? You're like, yeah, but I think it's true. Your limiting beliefs don't need to dictate your life. And those people that tell you that, yeah, you should just not believe that anymore, don't know what they're talking about. How are you supposed to not believe something if you have no proof otherwise? Because the thing is, our beliefs are usually shaped by the outcomes that we've seen at one point or another. But how do we change the outcomes, right? That becomes the question. Well, our outcomes, right, they're driven by the actions that we take. And what are our actions driven by? They're driven by our priorities, like big things that really matter to us. And then our priorities, what are those driven by? Our values. Most of us, our values, we haven't actually articulated them. We don't even really know what they are. If we look back in hindsight, by the way, our values are written over everything that we touch. Until you really clarify those values and you know them, and they really resonate with you at your core, how are you supposed to know your priorities or your actions or your outcomes that you even want? And so then, of course you're gonna have limiting beliefs if that doesn't line up. And of course your mindset is gonna be negative. Things don't need to be that way. It doesn't. Let's see what we can make happen. If you would like to do that with someone and bounce ideas off of, and have someone else be able to hear what you're saying and then articulate back to you of hey, it sounds like this is what you're finding important, and hey, have you considered this or do you consider that? Check out the comments below. We can connect. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love to see people thrive, and I believe that you can, and I know that you're capable of it. To conclude, create alignment between your values, your priorities, your actions, and your outcomes, your mindset, and your beliefs will naturally fall into place, and you'll feel better. And that's the framework that I wish I had 7 years ago, because then I would have been able to figure out what, why, how, and it would have saved me a lot of time. Click the link below. Let's get connected. I want you to feel your absolute best.